Chino Hills State Park encompasses 14,000 acres of grassy hills and is located about 45 minutes east of Los Angeles. This area is popular for hiking and biking year-round, but especially in the spring when the wildflowers are in bloom. While this isn't a super bloom year, I decided to go check out one of the park's top trails, and here's all the information on what it's like to hike in Chino Hills State Park. I set out to visit the park on a Monday morning as it's often very busy during the weekends. It was a nice easy drive to the gate of the state park, and the hills surrounding it were covered in yellow. I didn't realize the park doesn't open until 9 a.m., so be sure to note that if you come. The park gate was closed when I got there at 8:45, so I had to wait until 9 for them to open it so I could enter. Lots of people were hiking here earlier and they just parked outside and were walking in past the gate. You can do this if you want to. It saves the $10 fee, but it adds 2 miles round trip to the hike. Plus, a lot of it is uphill from the gate to get to the trailhead. I made it in and I parked in the Bane Ridge parking area. I'm gonna head out on the trail. Today I'm about an hour east of Los Angeles, Chino Hills State Park, which is one of the best areas to see wildflowers in the spring. It's middle March, it was really good right by the entrance. Not as good driving in, but we're gonna take the Bane Ridge Trail to the Sidewinder Trail and let's see how it is. It didn't seem like there was gonna be as many flowers today, but I have an old video I made from when I went during a super bloom year that you can see in the description if you're interested. A lot of people elect to park outside of the park and to walk in to avoid paying the fee. I like to pay the fee myself because it helps to maintain these beautiful places. Plus the hike's much better if you can do the loop like this instead of having to walk all the way back out to your car, which adds about 2 miles round trip. Hiking the trail in this direction is about 4.5 miles round trip with about 400 to 500 feet of elevation gain. There's the car down there. You can see that this trail gains elevation relatively quickly, but once we get up to the ridgeline, it's kind of just a little bit of elevation as we continue on. Oh sweet, there's actually a pretty good bloom right out there along the trail of poppies. This ended up being the largest collection of poppies that I saw on the entire trail. On previous years there was blankets of orange all over, but not as much this year. It was still an incredibly beautiful area to see with the green of the grassy hills, the orange, and then a little bit of snow on the mountains in the background. So that poppy area I was looking at is off trail over there. So the best view is from back there, but we're gonna stay on the trail and keep going. As you make it up to this ridge line, you just walk up gradual up and down slopes as you continue back into the park. These mustard plants behind me are actually not native to the area, so while they're cool to see, it's kind of a bummer that they're like taking over a lot of the areas that the other wildflowers would be in. The other bummer about the mustard plants is that they grow pretty tall and then they tend to dry up by the middle of the summer. Because of this, they often become kindling for the wildfires in the state. Even without a super bloom, this is an amazing park as it's nice and green and pretty with rolling hills, but there isn't any shade, so do know that. Check it out, we got a couple purple blooms. Is it just me, or does anybody else find it creepy when you hear the electrical current going through the power lines when you're under them? Just me? As I explored the park, I saw about a half dozen different types of wildflowers along the trail. Plus, on a weekday for most of the trail, I didn't see any other people until I met up with a hiking group towards the middle. We're about 1.25 miles in. We're going to that trail way out there, and then we'll cut across and go down into the canyon. One last big uphill push before we go down into the canyon. This is definitely a pretty steep one. Luckily it's not too long. It looks like I lied. There's one more steep section, and there's a whole bunch of wildflower hunters up there, it looks like. I haven't seen anyone on this trail so far, but this is getting closer to where people can walk in without having to pay the fee. So I guess that's why there's so many people up there. As you get close to the split, you're right around the 2-mile mark. We made it to the top of the last hill. There's the trail we're going. down into the canyon. It's about 9:45. The trail has no shade, so it's nice that it's heading downhill because it's getting pretty warm. As you head into the canyon, the trail takes a single track all the way down. This is the only part where I was around other people, and they were a meetup group that just connected to check out the wildflowers. Eventually we made it to the bottom of the hill and split off onto the Sidewinder Trail. If I had to guess, I would think most of the wildflowers are probably done now that we're down in this canyon, but we'll see. So far this trail is narrow with lots of overgrown shrubs. I believe these overgrown shrubs are what remains of the mustard plants from last year. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong though. This is the first shade trees we've got on this entire hike. Good spot for a water break. The Sidewinder Trail is a great end to this hike as it's 2 miles, but it's basically flat the entire time. At this point, we're about 3 miles in, 1 mile left to get back to the car at around 4.2 miles round trip. This is actually a really beautiful part of the trail. It's a nice juxtaposition with the first half that we did, which was up on the ridge, seeing the flowers. Now we're down here in the shade. There's a small creek. Honestly, great loop in the park. You can see a little bit of poppies way out in the distance too. Speed limit 15. I guess I gotta slow down. I'm officially a dad now, so I guess my dad jokes are out in full force. As you reach this windmill and shed, you'll officially be at the end of the Sidewinder Trail and you'll have to walk the road back to your car. This part of the park is where a lot of the infrastructure is. There's an amphitheater, there's an old barn, and there's even a private residence. Breaking off from the road, and that's where the trail heads back up to the parking area. I parked in kind of a weird spot for my loop, so that's why I had to do this little single track trail back up to where I parked. If you do that, it's definitely easier to have an all trails map to follow so you know where you're going. All right, we made it back to the car. That was an awesome springtime hike, even though there wasn't a ton of blooms right now. We're gonna head to lunch and then end this video. For lunch, I drove about 10 minutes back into town for Roll 'em Up Taquitos, which is a chain, but it's a place that I love. I got 5 taquitos, 1 of each with the lit sauce, which is spicy that you dip it in. Cheers. Oh yeah, that's good. And I also got this monstrosity. Street corn served with hot Cheeto dust. Gotta love some health food after a good hike. That's it for this video. We'll see you on the next one, which is a spring hike in Northern California. Cheers.